It is time to get down. It is time for the RAWDOWN, the #1 source for all things WWE, right here at the Turnbuckle Tavern. I am your host, Young Anthony, and after watching Blood and Guts yesterday, I only wish that we're getting War Games later on this year. But and joining me, would you like to introduce yourself?
Let me talk to you. I'll tell you what they're talking about. They're talking about JB Knight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, I'm
Clever
Jay
name.
of Coming Down the Aisle.
Clever name. Clever name. It's a two-man show this week. Marco is out in the Indies watching his little indie fest.
Yeah, he's with his little. I wonder how many guys he's with that are not wearing deodorant right now. Or women. Hey, we don't discriminate. We don't discriminate.
Will you stop?
But Marco is having some fun over at Chaotic Wrestling, I believe.
Yeah.
Tyson's
in the house. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, Chaotic Wrestling.
Chaotic Wrestling. Another week of not a lot of outside the ropes news as it pertains to WWE, which is weird. It feels like these last few weeks, it's really not been a lot of news really to talk about. No. We've kind of been forced to talk about Raw and SmackDown, which isn't a bad thing because they've been good shows. So,
well, yeah, and I'm just kind of thinking about this overall. Remember how crazy 2022 was, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was more known for the outside the ring stuff. Man, all the turmoil that went outside. Triple H taking over, which now, as a little quick cheap plug, we're going to be on the debate. And we're kind of talk about that a little bit about how Triple H has done so far. But, there's not been really, crazy news. 2023 is going to be known as for the in-ring action.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much all across the board,
Yep.
AEW, WWE, Impact guys. I know this is a WWE show, but Impact is really killing it. You guys need to give it a shot if you haven't already. I'm loving Impact. It's like right up there with me for WWE and AEW. But anyways, I digress. But yeah, 2023 is gonna be really like the year of the in-ring action. So
right, you make a good point in that it's not just the WWE, because I think there was so much news happening outside of the ropes in the WWE last year that you almost forget that there was so much other stuff that was happening in AEW. Obviously, Brawl Out was like the second biggest story of the year. And now you look at this year, and unless I'm forgetting like a huge story, there hasn't really been any follow-up.
The only thing is the sale,
the sale.
It's really been the last big story that we had. There's been no releases, that's actually kind of surprising. No releases. We thought that we were going to hear releases. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Nick Khan kind of teased it for whatever reason or another. I don't know if it was necessarily Nick Khan or was the dirt sheet that said he was teasing it. I don't know. Whatever. But that's never happened yet.
They were supposed to happen like earlier this month, no?
I think so, yeah.
So
I don't know. Interesting, maybe it could be too. Because the product's so hot, they're making so much money. They said, you know what? Maybe we don't need the cutbacks.
Right.
I mean, they could have probably had a hell of a quarter. I don't really know exactly their financial situation is. I know it's good.
Yeah, and
really
good.
Mean,
you look at just this past year alone. I mean, the amount of business that they've done, not just in the United States, but the entire world. all these different international shows. I would imagine that WWE is doing some of their best financially in this last year than they have, in the last few years. It's just a testament to how good the WWE is right now, not just from the in-ring. And, we're talking about 2023 as the year of the in-ring action, which after the year we had last year, it really should be focused on the in-ring, but just an overall standpoint. There are so many articles right now that are talking about how the WWE is as hot as, or maybe even hotter than it was in the Attitude Era. I think that's an interesting take. You have a better, comparison on that since you lived the Attitude Era. Like, do you see those comparisons?
Yes, I do. I actually think, and I posed this, possibly as for our question for the debate that we're going to come up with. I was actually going to talk about this. I actually think this roster is better than the Attitude Era. As a top, I'm talking about top to bottom.
Right.
Maybe top Attitude Era is better, on the top guy level. If you talk about top to bottom, when you could bring in like a mid card, like Chad Gable, right? Which he should be elevated in the card. I think he should be in the IC title picture, personally. But when we talk about somebody like that, that's like, and we talk about him in such reverence, dude. Like, you wouldn't see that with somebody on the level, like on the card like that. 5 years ago, 2 years ago, probably.
Right.
There are definitely some similarities in how the roster's built right now. And I think it's better in some regards.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is because they're doing it in a way where they don't have to take the easy, cheap pops, like with the suckets and the
right
bra and panties and the choppy PP.
Well, I think that's a good point to make. One of the biggest talking points when people discuss the Attitude Era roster was that everyone had something to do. Everyone had a place on the roster, from the top Stone Cold to the bottom of the roster. Everyone had a place on Monday Night Raw. And I think that's where you can draw the comparisons to the modern day roster, because when you really look at it and you see the Raw roster and you see the SmackDown roster, everyone does really have a place. Not that everyone is doing something, but everyone has their spot. Right. And what I think gives the edge to the modern roster is that everyone is looked at as a serious competitor. It's not like, the Val Venuses and the Kai and Tai that, these wrestlers are being presented as jokes. You look at guys that were even in the 24/7 title division, guys like Akira Tozawa and Drew Gulak, who were once, presented as jokes, which that whole division was a joke. But now you're starting to see them not as, even mid-card guys, but still in the lower mid-card, but they're being presented as wrestlers. Now, is that a good thing that everyone's kind of being presented as, this serious wrestler? No, you need to have some characters. But I think that's where they're also benefiting in a way, is they're giving you reasons to get invested in a lot of these hot acts, right? The Judgment Day, Logan Paul, the Bloodline, obviously. These are all acts that are really, really hot right now because they're putting all that momentum behind them. We're going to talk about it later on today. Dominic Mysterio finally winning a singles title, giving him a championship for NXT. I feel like they're really hitting on these hot acts right now. I think that's what also kind of elevates this roster when you're comparing them to the Attitude Era. Sure, it doesn't compare as far as overall star power. Stone Cold, The Rock, Undertaker, but the way that they're being positioned, there's definitely a case to be made.
They're getting there too on that star level. You got Roman and Cody. Another 2 or 3 megastars. Either you bring in or you develop. You got a top tier, all time, main event roster. Who
do you see as the next 3 megastars outside that would be under Roman and Cody? I think LA Knight is up there. LA
Knight, 100%.
Did you see that well, you had to have seen it. The promo that he did,
Yeah,
that pop
it's
was
insane.
unbelievable.
It's insane.
I
It
watched
really
it on
is.
YouTube. Like I only had to see the first 2 seconds. When they hit that music, the crowd literally all stands up in unison.
I
because
will
of
say
how
they
hot
do
this
need to
guy is.
change his music, not the LA night. Leave that.
Mhm.
That's perfect.
Yeah,
But just give something like more, I don't know, exciting. And it's
yeah,
just like it's like generic wrestler 101.
yeah. His theme is still a little heelish. I feel like
Right.
that has that kind of swagger
But
to it.
keep the LA the little robot LA
Oh
night
yeah,
voice.
well that's what you need. You need that, Austin Glass Shatter. You need the if you smell. That's
Right.
his like
Right.
intro. So
Right.
you have LA Knight. I think Gunther has to be up there because
Gunther, yeah.
out of all
He's
those
close.
names, he's technically the youngest right now. He's still in his mid 30s, but I mean, he's a guy that's once he's out of the Intercontinental title division, I see him being one of the next world champions.
I'll give a name right here that's been really impressing me a lot,
Mhm.
especially with his program in LA Knight. Escobar.
Oh, okay.
Maybe not like top tier, but I think he could be like a big player in the company. Like he's done a really good job at being the baby face in a role where he was up against LA Knight and LA Knight was getting that fan reaction.
Right.
Like he still was doing it, and part of that maybe is the LWO stuff, but I feel like maybe that's kind of like the nostalgia hit's kind of worn off a little bit.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
but it's still good. Like I'm not saying it's like get rid of it. Obviously,
No, yeah.
I just feel like the nostalgia is like, oh, now it's like we're used to it. It's like, okay, it's the LWO. You're like, cool. I think he's somebody that could be, that could really be elevated up to the card
I could
if
see it.
they
Yeah.
give him the push. And I mean, he obviously had a good showing of Money in the Bank.
Mhm.
I'll see all those guys in Money in the Bank. I'll tell you what, too. If by any chance they could get Logan Paul to come in for some more shots, have some more matches on Raw or SmackDown, maybe. I know he's a busy guy, like I get that, but if you can like really have Logan Paul in there amongst your Codys, your Romans, you could say Usos, of course, too,
Right.
and LA Knight. Man, you're really starting to develop a top tier main event scene.
Logan
So,
Paul is a guy that they need to keep happy 100%. Anything that he wants to do, they need to just let him do it because, we're talking about youth, and I know that youth is a conversation that always gets brought up. LA Knight is in his 40s, this, that, and the other thing. But I mean, when you're talking about youth and you're talking about stars, Logan Paul is the youngest guy that you have that could be a absolute. He already is a star for the WWE, but if you want him to take that extra leap, and be a megastar, he can do that. And he is young enough that you can have him carry the torch for a while if you really want to go in that route, which I think that they should. When it comes to the LWO and Santos Escobar, I completely agree with you. I think they are I think he is one big story away from going from mid card to maybe like upper mid card, maybe more of a believable. I think he should. I think the LWO needs to stay babyface for a while.
Oh yeah.
They're a very you can relate to the LWO, especially you saw that when they were going up against the Judgment Day, which I still think is a feud that they can start up again and it'll never get old. Even though the Judgment Day is probably going on their own paths, which we'll talk about when we get to Raw. But I still think that LWO and Judgment Day, you can always put them up against each other, and there's magic that can be made. I mean, Rey and Dominic probably will be Rey's retirement match when it's all said and done. But I think Santos needs something that will truly present himself as not a main eventer, like an upper mid carder. Money in the Bank, having him in that spot definitely elevated him. I think it elevated everyone that was in that match. Ricochet, Shinsuke's taking on a more edgier character now. I think it did wonders for literally everyone in that match, maybe except for Butch. But if they really want to get him to that next level, I think you need, I don't know who you put him up against. Maybe this maybe not LA Knight because now he's obviously babyface.
Can't do LA Knight. Honestly, you want to get somebody over real quick, especially with his run. I know he's a Raw guy, but you can always make something happen.
Mhm.
Let him beat Gunther for the title. That would be a big shot in the arm.
Hot takes here. Get your hot takes here.
I don't think anyone's mentioned Santos as like a potential candidate to take down Gunther. I think that's an interesting name to bring out there,
Right.
because as much as it's like, you know, Gunther is untouchable right now, it's really anyone's ball game, as long as they build them up properly. You know, it could be Drew, it could be LA Knight, it could be Santos. So I think that's an interesting name to throw out there.
Yeah, and then you could have, you know, Imperium going up against
The
the
LWO,
LWO for a while, you know. I know, I like the way Esquire is presented. You know, whenever he was in NXT, you know, because I was actually watching NXT then.
Mhm.
It just felt very stereotypical, like the way he was presented, like the very affluent Mexican cartel
Right.
guy.
Right.
You know, it's just like, all right. Like very Alberto Del Rio,
No, you're right.
Andrade, you know, just carbon copy. Now it's just like, I feel like it's like this is him, you
Mhm.
know, what we're seeing, you know, and that's all, you know, everybody always says it. That's what makes a good wrestler. You got something going on behind you, there, pal.
Yeah, my door closed. I'm sure there's like a glare from my light that I'm trying to block out. Continue. Sorry.
No, that's okay. And you know, everybody always says that this is, you know, that's what makes a wrestler so good is their character coming out. So
yeah, LWO was good for the nostalgia. I think that was the bump that they needed. Now it comes down to what can we do to really put them over the edge. So Santos could be a name to look out for in the future.
Hey, I did call last summer that Roman will hold the title since we're till WrestleMania 40. It's looking like could be right. So
Oh, it's absolutely right. I don't see anyone taking this title off of Roman until Mania 40.
I need to find those clips where it said that. And
I'm sure you've said it multiple times, and like you know, looking back on it, whenever you said it, I'm sure it was like, Jesus Christ, is he really gonna hold on to that title that long? Now it's like we're about to hit SummerSlam, and it's like if he doesn't hit up until WrestleMania 40, it would be like a disservice.
right.
And I think it's not only just because of the Bloodline story, but I think you really need. I'm still set on Cody winning this title. There's no one else
I think so too.
it can take this championship off of him. It doesn't make sense for Cody to win the championship any other place except for WrestleMania 40. I mean, you have him lose at WrestleMania 39. You give him this year-long, you know, this Brock feud is just about to wrap up. Now becomes, what do we do next with Cody? I feel like it's hard to argue against, right? Not giving him the title anything other than WrestleMania 40.
And something's kind of coming to mind too with that. You know, I know a lot of people said, "Well, you're going to have him win the Royal Rumble 2 years in a row." Don't forget, you also have Elimination Chamber along the way.
That's right.
And you can do things to make it make sense of why he picks Roman or why he ends up facing Roman. Maybe the Royal Rumble winner comes from SmackDown and says, you know what? I want to challenge, if he's champion still, Seth.
Mhm.
You know? And so, or I want to challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship. And then that would leave the Raw person or the person winning the Elimination Chamber having to face Roman. So,
right.
So you could do that because I feel it would be a little bit of, oh, here we go again if Cody wins in the Royal Rumble, and then you're like, oh, he's gonna face Roman and he's gonna lose again. I don't know. I feel like that would be, and maybe the same thing will happen in Elimination Chamber. I don't know, but I just want to find a creative way instead of, okay, let's give Cody the Royal Rumble win, and then we'll figure it out from there.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even want Cody to win the Royal Rumble for two reasons. One, because I feel like whoever wins the Royal Rumble should challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship to give it that boost of prestige that it needs.
Yep.
And number
Good
two,
point.
Cody doesn't need to win the Royal Rumble whatsoever. I would much rather him go the Royal Rumble 2010 Shawn Michaels route, where he's made it a point that if he wins the Royal Rumble, he's going to challenge Roman. He's doing well. He's eliminating guys. He's eliminating his friends. He's doing whatever he can to win this. And then he gets eliminated. And he just, he's so incensed on wanting to beat Roman that he's just, he doesn't know what to do next. And then maybe you give him the Elimination Chamber where, he finally goes on and, he's going to fight Roman. But I want him to continue having that struggle. Like, it should never be easy for Cody Rhodes. I mean, his last name proves that it should never be just easy. And I don't know why we didn't see this. Well, a few people in this world saw it happening, but I don't know why we didn't see that.
I will say, even though I had my WrestleMania 40 prediction, last year this time, about a month up until WrestleMania, I was like, Cody's gonna win this 100%.
Right.
And I picked Cody because the way he was presented, but they pulled a fast one on me. They got me.
Yeah.
Because whenever he won the Rumble, I was not convinced he was gonna win.
Mm-hmm.
I still wasn't convinced. I was like, But it was probably when he cut that promo with HEYMAN. I was like, damn, he might win this.
Yeah. And in hindsight, it was a much better decision than putting the title on him.
I still think so. I know a lot of people are like, oh, dude, he's still over like Rover. We'll talk about it right now. They're about to come up with a documentary with him.
Right.
Cody
Rhodes, what is it? The American Nightmare Becoming Cody Rhodes, the WWE Peacock documentary. I am so friggin' excited for this documentary.
I am hyped. Look, I'll tell you this, show you this too. You see over this shoulder right here? There's my Cody Rhodes Ultimate right there.
Ooh, beautiful.
Yeah, it's a great figure, by the way. And I don't collect current day guys, but I love Cody Rhodes, so I had to get that. But
is Cody really a modern guy if you think of it? Like he's modern in terms of 2023, but he is really like an old,
right? He is old school,
like a throwback.
You're right. That's probably why I like him so much.
Yeah, true. So Becoming Cody Rhodes documentary. This has to be one of the most anticipated documentaries that they've made in a little bit. And it really just goes to show you how important to the company Cody Rhodes is, that anything that he's involved in immediately becomes like must see. Like, I remember when the Stone Cold podcast came out with Cody Rhodes, and they had like the trailer for it that he was teasing why he left AEW, like, and everyone was just like, I have to see this.
Yeah, you have to see it.
Even if they didn't talk about AEW, people were like, I have to see this because of it's just Cody Rhodes. He's such a polarizing figure in modern wrestling, especially in WWE, that it's like anything he does is earth-shattering in the world of wrestling. So the fact that we're getting a documentary about him that will be a story of, I'm guessing they're gonna tell Cody's story from the beginning.
Yeah, they're not gonna leave out AEW. I guarantee you.
Yeah,
they're gonna talk about.
They showed in the trailer footage of him on the independent scene.
Yep.
They're
not gonna like do the brush over, because one, this isn't on WWE television. Like, yeah, it's on WWE Network, but it's not like it's not on Raw and SmackDown.
Right.
They would never say AEW on there.
Yeah.
Even anytime they've kind of brushed around it, they just said, "Oh, remember when you left to go to the bingo hall or whatever?" I don't even know if they said that, but anyways, and two, like, if you're gonna do a documentary, you can't just leave out, was it 2 years of somebody's life?
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Especially how impactful it was.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Cody Rhodes. Let's stop and think about this. During the pandemic, right? The very first pandemic episode of Dynamite, who did they put out there?
Cody Rhodes.
The very first episode. He's alone in the ring, and
in an empty ring. Yep.
In an empty arena, like nobody knows what's going on. Everybody's scared. Like the world is scared, right? Mm-hmm. Most of them, anyway. and just trying to take our mind off of things for a couple of hours, and we see that's who they decide to put out there,
Mhm.
And he was the face of AEW. He's still the face of WWE. I mean, or a face at least,
Right.
Yeah. So it's just amazing to me. Just kind of reflecting on that as we talk. It's gonna be a great documentary.
They had the I don't know if you saw, they did like the world premiere of the documentary that they did a red carpet for. The guests that were there. I mean,
I only saw. I know Cardona was there, but
Cardona was there.
They're buddies.
And Diamond
Chelsea.
Dallas Page, DDP Yoga was in attendance.
Hey, DDP, man, he has said, like, I don't care what happens, I'll follow Cody Rhodes, not because he's trying to get himself over, but because of what Dusty did for him.
Right.
I'll help Cody Rhodes every till my dying breath. I mean, he risked his stock with WWE to go make those couple appearances with AEW.
Right.
And he said that, he goes, like, I know this might affect, if this affects me, so be it, but I'm here to help my friend. This is like, that's like, I think he even calls him nephew. So I'm
really excited to see what Cody says about.
Be interesting, and they talk about it too.
Yeah, there's so much to look forward to in this documentary, and they're going to talk about everything, and I'm very much looking forward to it. A few more topics I want to kind of do a deep dive in before we touch upon Raw and SmackDown. Yesterday, I mentioned it at the very top of the show. I know it's not AEW wrap up, but Blood and Guts happened, and I feel like it's appropriate to talk about AEW in this sense because, we were just talking about last week, Survivor Series is not going to be War Games this year. It's just going to be what seems to be traditional Raw versus SmackDown, based on the colors of the logo, if that has anything to do with it. But basically no War Games. We did get pretty much a War Games match yesterday. I love that they can't say War Games on AEW, obviously. So, like, you have Tony Schiavone saying, like, oh, I remember the previous iterations of this type of match.
Yeah.
Like, just saying everything other than War Games.
Yeah.
I just want to know what your thoughts on the match were. I know the group chat was very active during this. And, kind of to compare, like, we've seen multiple iterations of War Games under WWE NXT, and now we've seen 3 iterations of Blood and Guts with AEW. How do you make of this kind of, how can you even compare these two? Can you compare these two? But what did you think of yesterday?
I think this has been the weakest out of the 3 Blood and Guts matches we've seen so far.
Yeah.
And I think it's because there's too much gaga surrounding these two teams, in and outside, the ring. You have this battle with as my wife calls him, Donnie Longneck, Don Callis, and that's become a storyline, and within the storyline, and then meanwhile you got the fans clamoring for CM Punk, CMFTR, and the Elite going head to head. I mean, that should have been the Blood and Guts match, obviously, and like everybody from the tavern has beat this drum, and I think we still need to keep beating it, because it needs to happen. But regardless, I don't know. I felt like there was not enough hype surrounding the match going into it. They did the whole, where they picked their partners, the remaining partners last week. But I don't think this is a match made for the Elite.
Mm-hmm.
I just think they're just too pretty. if that makes any sense. I don't know. It feels like they're just round peg in a square hole kind of thing
Well,
with this.
not to cut you off, but like this is why I couldn't get into the match, and I understand what you're saying in a sense, because when I'm watching the match, there were spots multiple times in a row that it would be like synchronous, like synchronized swimming. You know, like someone. There was one point where like one guy does a superplex off the turnbuckle, then the next guy does a superplex off the turnbuckle, then the next guy does, and over and over. And you know, like the spot where I like the visual of the thumbtacks being thrown through the top of the cage and hitting Claudio and Pac, but you know, the fact that whoever was about to get power bombed onto them both at the same time managed to throw Claudio and Pac at the same time, like things like that really took me out of it. Also the fact that Moxley comes in, stabs Page with a screwdriver like 5 times. Page gets thrown onto thumbtacks. He gets thrown onto glass. And at the end of the match, there's not a single scratch on him. And it's in the theme song. It's like, I just couldn't get into it. But when you're talking about the build, like you mentioned, this is where I can't buy Blood and Guts as a big match for AEW, because every time that they have put on this match, the only reason why it has felt big is because of the name Blood and Guts. That's the only reason why I consider this to be like a big show, and because of the 2 cages, because of the presentation. When you actually when the bell rings, there's nothing behind it. I haven't really enjoyed maybe the first one. I liked the
first one was great.
The inner circle.
The ending was weird with Jericho going through the cardboard boxes.
That was the one thing. But I mean, last year's, this year's, it's just, it hasn't felt like what people make it out to be, like the prestige behind the War Games, and you know, with Dusty and the Horsemen and everything like that. I haven't seen those older matches. I'm seeing, if this is your first exposure to a 2-ring, 1 cage type of setup like they have, it's like, is this really what it's all cracked up to be? Like, I feel like they're doing a disservice to the match, if anything, with the way that they've built up to it and the way that they put on the match.
I think also it's how they've been building to Blood and Guts over the last couple of years. The first generation was fine. You know, you had Stadium Stampede, and then you went into you know, a little while later Blood and Guts, or was it vice versa? Actually, I think it was vice versa. I think it was Blood Guts first, and then in Stadium Stampede. Yeah, it was.
Oh,
so because it was like beginning of May, and then they went to Double or Nothing Stadium Stampede, right?
Oh no, other way around. I think they started
was it the other way?
Stadium Stampede, yeah. And then
Okay. I thought it was like, for some reason I thought it was like beginning of May, but anyways, regardless, you know, I think okay, that's okay. But then we got conditioned once the next year came along and we saw Anarchy in the Arena with 2 big factions, and we're like, oh, we're gonna get Blood and Guts, right? Well, they've already done the big, huge blow-off match, especially how crazy Anarchy in the Arena was last year with Eddie Kingston coming down with the gasoline and all that stuff, right? I thought Anarchy in the Arena both times have just kind of taken out some of the lust for the Blood and Guts, you know?
Yep.
So I think that's part of it. It's how they built to it, you know? Another part, like I said, for me, the Elite just don't fit in that kind of environment. Right. And also, like the group chat was saying, I'm just tired of the Elite. Like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, break them up. Like, let's see Omega and some other stuff. So I think if we're comparing this with War Games, especially War Games from this past year, definitely the male War Games were way better with Sammy and all that stuff. So, yeah.
How was the build to the Survivor Series matches? Because do you remember like how the build up to it was?
Like, you talking about way back in the day? Like in the early 90s?
That yes, I was kind of just referring to last year with the War Games matches, like
Oh.
how were those built up? But I mean, how were those older matches? Like, did they feel like huge matches? Like,
It
did they
did.
give off that impression?
Because you always had like the captains, you know, and this is way back in the day. Like you had the captains, and they were trying to like kind of like scout their team a little bit, you know. Maybe they'd come out and watch, you know, somebody's match that, you know, knew that they had a favorable opponent with, you know. It's like, for instance, like maybe you had $1 Million Man come out. I can't remember anything specific, but $1 Million Man come out trying to scout like Honky Tonk Man or something, right?
Mhm.
It's just, you know, because Honky Tonk Man and Jake the Snake were going to go against each other. So things like that. But you'd slowly see these teams being built over course of a couple months, like 2 months, like starting around October into November. And so you start seeing the build to these teams, and there was just teams. But we were talking about the build from last year. The build from last year I felt like was really good. I kind of questioned with Team Owens, but I feel like the way especially how everything went down, like you needed to try to get like an all-star team out there, kind of thing, and have common enemies, you know, in order to try to take down the bloodline. But the bloodline is just too powerful, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I was okay with it. I mean, definitely. My favorite War Game is the very first Team WCW versus Team NWO. That was hella cool for me. Very good storylines, but you know, I think this was good. You definitely have to have a blood feud, but it has to make sense of why they're in the War Games or Blood and Guts set. And I feel like it just got overplayed.
And that's the thing too, is like, I agree with you there. It needs to make sense, but I feel like it did make sense for these 10 guys to be in
it did if they didn't have Anarchy in the arena.
Right. That's really what kind of got me, is the fact that they did a match like this already, and now they're doing another one. Right. It's too much. Like, I understand, you know, Moxley is meant for situations like this, but like not every match, right. Especially not with the Elite. I just want the Combat Club and the Elite to be over with.
Yes, and I think
they'll never do it, but I want the Elite to just break away and do their own things. Like, it's always been the four of them attached to the hip, and they just love to work together, and that's great. But a lot of the stuff that they've been doing post Hangman versus Omega has just not been good.
Right.
It's, I don't know. I think it's finally time that we get some, like they were saying on the flagship, fresh stuff, interesting matchups that we haven't seen before. I almost want to write a list of all the matchups that we haven't gotten with the Elite members versus other people, just to show how much there's still left on the table. But
yeah,
I
saw something weird too last night. I want to throw this out there. I don't know if you saw this, but it was a video of Kota Ibushi like taking the thumbtacks. This is after the event, and like rubbing them on his chest. And then he had him put him on the rest of them on the mat and took a back bump. And I'm like, for what? Like, and like sprung like back up. Like, why? Why did you do that?
I know.
Like, that kills it. Like right there, you know. Like, I don't know. It was weird. It was very weird. Ibushi was very disappointing last night.
Before we get into Raw, just real quick.
Sorry, or as Hawk says, that Asian guy.
Yeah, I know. He's something else. He's really something else on this episode. He's talking about Jesse Ventura being the next commentator for AEW. Before we get into, let's talk about SmackDown first. Real quick, give me your number one, because I don't want to step on Fig Knight's toes by talking about all the San Diego Comic-Con stuff, but give me your number one most anticipated figure, or figures if it's a 2-pack.
Very, very underwhelming this year. I will say that.
Ooh.
Yeah. There's a couple of them. I will say the Razor Shawn Michaels 2-pack is very exciting to me. That's something I've wanted in a long time, but I wish it was an ultimate, but that's fine. And my most random love of the figure from this year, we're getting a fake Diesel, baby. Big Glenn as Big Kev.
There were a lot of random figures that were announced.
Random.
Like Nicholas, the 8-year-old.
Nicholas, yeah, and John Cone.
John Cone. I'm actually very excited, and I'm happy
Yeah.
that we're getting a John Cone because I feel like that's the first outside of I think Danny Davis got a figure, right?
It was a Build-A-Figure, yeah.
I feel like John Cone is like the first legit referee figure that
At least WWE made, yeah.
Right. That or Mattel.
Mattel, yeah. Even WWE, you gotta talk about way back in the Jax day, they had like generic referee, but it had Earl Hebner's picture on the package.
Right.
But they didn't call him Earl Hebner.
I think it's a licensing thing.
It is.
Yeah, they can't even like include them in the 2K games. Like they literally, if they do like the showcase mode, they have to blur out their faces because they're like not allowed to show them on like that type of material. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
No, but it's cool that we're getting like a legit referee figure. Although his run hasn't been great since coming back, I think that Bray Wyatt Ultimate actually does look pretty cool. With
it looks really cool in the trash can.
Yeah, whatever.
Why waste an Ultimate on that fucking match?
No, I mean it's only Hogan's and Bray's. That's all.
Yeah, there's a lot of Hogan's, lots and lots of Hogan's. I just when you thought they could stop making Hogan's, I think they're gonna start making a Hogan from every day of his career. This is from January 4th, 1984. And then this is from January 5th, 1984.
Every day they're gonna get a new Hogan.
Jeez.
All right, let's get into it. We'll break down Raw and SmackDown. We're gonna start with
SmackDown sucks.
SmackDown once again has not sucked this week, so Roman was wrong on that. What were your biggest takeaways from this past week?
Let's see. Of course, love the interaction with Paul Heyman and Jey Uso.
Right.
And just kind of their the way they kind of battled back and forth. Of course, Uso super kicks Heyman, which Heyman doesn't take a lot of bumps, and so for Heyman to do that, that they're trying to drive a point home that Jey Uso's here. Now I still, as of right now, I still think that Roman's still going to win, like we talked about. But this does, kind of help perpetuate that idea that maybe Jey can do this. So I don't know. It was I thought it was a really, really great promo. Let's see. I do like how we're not getting kind of like a number one contender match at SummerSlam for Bianca and Charlotte, and I think that'll kind of help really elevate that title with title match with Asuka a lot more.
Do you think that they're doing you said they're doing Bianca versus Charlotte as the number one contenders?
I believe so, right? I think they something like that. Bella and Flair, they agreed to a match at SummerSlam.
I don't know if it was at SummerSlam.
Okay.
Maybe it's before SummerSlam.
Okay,
because I still feel like they're going to end up doing a triple threat with all three of them. I feel like it would be a kind of strange not to at this rate. You've included all three. I mean, honestly, if they wanted to do something different, don't do the triple threat match and pick one or the other. I know it's not typical wrestling. I mean, you have three people involved in the storyline. You end up including all three people in the match. But I mean, if you want to do something different, have Bianca and Charlotte face each other and literally have a winner, and whoever wins goes on to face Asuka.
I think they should do it the same night. That would be good cool, too. Because then it's like now you got some odds against these two. One of whoever wins out of those two, who are you expect. Okay, Bianca's going to go up against Asuka. Even though Asuka beat her, obviously you're like, I think Bianca's going to win again, or she's going to take it. But now if she has a match with Charlotte where she's weakened, then it's a more kind of an even playing field type of situation. And vice versa with Charlotte too. So
yeah.
I do like. I just don't like the person it's named after, but the Theory US Invitational Tournament thing.
Oh yeah,
that's going on again. Santos Escobar,
mm-hmm.
as we talked about. He won the first Fatal 4-Way. I don't like what they're really doing with AJ Styles though right now. I don't really get what they're doing. He's definitely taking a step back quite a bit, and I know he's getting towards the end of his career and that kind of thing, but I don't know, like it feels off to me.
I mean, he can still go. Like I don't know why
he can. That's what doesn't make sense,
He just feels like he's been ever since the OC have come back, and I was there for when Gallows and Anderson came back. It was a great moment. Sure, Styles got injured, which kind of put things on the shelf for a little bit. Ever since they've come back as a unit, it just feels like they've just been placed wherever, like if there's a one piece left in a puzzle and you need to just fit the one piece that works. Like that's what it feels like for the OC. Whenever there's a spot that needs to be filled, it's like AJ Styles can fill that spot. Right. Oh, you get someone in the finals of the World Heavyweight Title Tournament. Oh, we can throw Styles in there, and it shouldn't be like that. But what gives me hope, not to jump on to Raw for a little bit, is that you give these people time, like guys like AJ, who it doesn't really feel like there's a lot going on with him. But you look at someone like Shinsuke, like he's someone that when Triple H took charge, he didn't immediately become like a huge factor in the overall landscape of WWE, and to an extent he still isn't, but gradually he's been kind of working his way back up. He was in Money in the Bank, he was able to do that match with the Great Muta, he was able to do all these different types of things, and now he's finally, something's clicking. Is it a heel turn? Is it just we'll save all that conversation for later, but that kind of gives me hope for someone like Styles. It's like, although nothing is happening right now, even though he's a little older, give it a little bit of time. LA Knight's a perfect example of that. Even though nothing's happening right now, give it a little time. So hopefully that's the case for him. But I mean, if he's just beating Karrion Kross in a minute and, losing in this match, it's like, how much can you really expect them to do something with him?
Right. Another thing interesting, Bobby Lashley pulls up in that limousine.
Yes.
And invites the Street Profits in for a little business meeting, looks like, right? What do you make of this?
I'm cool with it because I think the Street Profits need something. I'm getting tired of just the same song and dance with them, right? It's always they're another one that it's like when there needs to be a tag team title match. If you need a number one contender, you just throw in the Street Profits, and they'll put them in a good match. But they've just been so wishy-washy about this, breaking them up. I'm personally not for them entirely breaking up the Street Profits because I do think that they work well together. So I think the next best thing is to give them something. Now, I don't like people immediately jumping on, oh, this is the Hurt Business 2.0. Because that's wrong for many reasons.
Much like how people said the Hurt Business was Nation of Domination.
Right, exactly. Like, but like this is it's different than the Hurt Business 2. Because the Hurt Business was built up like very organically. Like it started as just MVP's vision, and then Bobby joined in, and then they recruited Shelton. And then there was a war between Cedric and Ricochet, and then Cedric turns on Ricochet to join the group. And there was a bond built up through them, and Bobby won the title and the tag team titles. And that was a great group. And it makes me a little puzzled as to why they wouldn't want to bring this back but I guess I understand why they wouldn't want to just immediately go back to the Hurt Business as it was, because, you know, maybe it just becomes a case of why do something that's already been done when you have another opportunity in saving and salvaging whatever you can of the Street Profits, right? Dawkins and Ford, they're just kind of floating around in the division right now. And because of the way that the tag team division is built in WWE, the only tag team feud that you get, it's very rare that you get another tag team feud outside of the tag team titles. It's hard for them to really get their footing, especially with the way that it's split Raw and SmackDown. So I'm cool with this. I'm interested to see where it goes. Obviously, this is the first time we've seen Bobby in a while. I forget that he won the Battle Royal for the Andre the Giant Battle Royal.
I'm trying to think. I was like, what did I miss?
Like,
yeah.
You know, maybe this will lead to something with them. Do they have to turn heel? No. I think if they stay as babyface, that would be fine. Not every group needs to be, you know, the same exact thing. Like, I would love to see them do something different with the Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits. It just becomes, how can they make it different? And I'm sure that they can. So I'm excited.
I mean, they could have like some swagger. And look, as much as like Bobby could give to the Street Profits, I think the Street Profits could give to Bobby as well too.
Right.
You know, because Bobby at times misses that kind of like a little bit of a lack of charisma at times, whereas Street Profits, both of them, are just full of charisma, right?
Yep.
And the Street Profits pairing with a former WWE champion like Bobby will help them as well too. So it could be fun, you know. So and I agree that you don't have to turn them heel.
Yeah.
Gee whiz, like, come on, people.
To anyone who thinks that they need to turn this group heel, I just have one message for
Get a life, kid.
Yes.
It's only a matter of time before I made that one.
It's under title design too.
Yeah. Anything else happen on SmackDown worth mentioning? Shotzi.
Yeah.
Or did that happen last week? Now I'm forgetting.
I'm forgetting. I don't know.
Shotzi, she shaved her head.
Oh yeah, you know that was the week before. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But I will say we can also talk about it too. It's technically SmackDown news, but even though it happened on Sunday night, Bailey.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So we haven't discussed that yet. Fatal 4-way at a house show between the three women in the SmackDown Women's title picture, and Bailey was also thrown in, probably to eat the pin. Makes sense for the way that the house show schedule works. I didn't see the injury. I don't know how it happened.
I did.
Okay, take us through it.
So it kind of looks like maybe like she stepped wrong because she was about to deliver like a boot to Asuka, I believe it was, and it's like she kind of just fell, like kind of crumbled. Like it was it looked like if I was trying to deliver a boot, like it just like fall down. So obviously Bailey is very athletic, so it wasn't like it looked very awkward, and it looked like definitely like you could tell it's like something happened like really strange. I think it was just kind of a freak accident. It didn't even look like Asuka had touched her, and it didn't look like anybody had touched her. Just like the way she kind of stepped was weird. So they immediately threw the X up, and you could tell because Asuka and like Charlotte were like looking at you like, what do we do? And I think they were just worried about their friend, obviously. It's a house show, so like who cares, right? But then they kind of started, I think Asuka ended like getting thrown out of the ropes or something. But yeah, they threw the X up. But I guess from reports that it's not as bad as what it looked like it was going to be. So
that's good.
Apparently she was able to walk out on her own.
Right.
So maybe
I did hear that. Yeah.
Just kind of sprained something or twisted it or something like that. So I don't know. It looked really strange though. Just looking at it. So
Another injury to talk about from SmackDown, Elton Prince from Pretty Deadly.
Yeah, I think this is a big blow for especially for the tag division.
Yeah, I mean, this was a team that you could tell had a lot of steam behind them, new from NXT. It really just comes down to how long is he going to be out for.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be.
I think it's going to be terrible. I think it'll probably be out a month.
Right. Which, it sucks that it's during the summer.
Right.
But, if it's a month, depending on how his injury is, maybe they could still run some promos just hyping up the group.
Mm-hmm.
I still think there's ways around it. But still, like, they're one of the better tag teams in the WWE right now. It's never like a good thing.
The only tag teams in WWE.
Well, yeah, that's a very good point.
That between them and Alpha Academy and Viking Raiders, that's about it. That's about it.
That's about it, and that's about it for SmackDown. Pretty good show overall. But let's do a quick switch over to.
It's almost as bad as Raw.
It's almost as bad as Raw. Another show that was not bad whatsoever. Actually, I don't know how. I would love to get your thoughts overall, but I overall really, really, really loved this show.
I did too, actually.
I thought from top to bottom, this not only was a great episode of Raw, but it felt like an episode that was building to SummerSlam. It felt like a proper, we're setting the seeds, planting the seeds for SummerSlam. Every segment nailed it from the very beginning with Cody talking about, his family and being in his hometown, getting attacked by Brock in front of his mom was great. To the little segments like, the Alpha Academy and Viking Raiders. That was a fun match. The Viking Rules match. Even to
I hated the name. I hated the name of that.
Oh yeah, even to some like low points, which I enjoyed the whole Miz TV thing with Becky and Trish, up until Trish told Becky to tattoo her name on Becky, which I thought that was whatever. And finally, the main event, great match. I've been talking about how I've been falling asleep during the main event of Raw the last few weeks. This one I actually watched, even though it was the same participants.
What a great guy.
What they did differently was that they finally gave it some interest. They put the tag team titles on the line. They didn't have to. They could have easily just made it a single, regular tag team match.
It's time to shake things up around here.
The fact that they shook things up around here made it worth watching. And that's all it takes is just a believable title match.
I will say they needed to get the tag titles off of Kevin and Sammy.
Yes.
I talked about it last week, but I really think they need to. I'd be okay with them giving it to Priest or Dominic.
Sure. At this rate,
why not? Or whoever. As long as it's a legitimate team.
Yeah.
I mean, Pretty Deadly would be a pretty good option.
Pun intended.
Pun intended. No pun intended, actually. But
Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn is exactly what happened. So KO and Sami win at WrestleMania. This is what would have happened if Cody won at WrestleMania.
Good point.
They're floundering around right now, trying to find something to do, an interesting angle to take their tag team, something different than they've done before, which I think is not working whatsoever with this whole KO has a temper.
They're handcuffed to each other.
Right.
It's like they're trying to run away from each other, but they can't.
And the most important part, they have no dance partners. There is no one for them to fight except for the Judgment Day. And that's leading to boring main events on Raw with the same match and the same participants. So I agree with you. They need.
I watched the match, and a matter of fact, I fell asleep in the middle of it.
About that one, I forgot. Yeah, I think I agree with you. They need to take the titles off of them, but it kind of seeing this, it makes me happy that they didn't pull the trigger on Cody for the moment. Like KO and Sami was a moment. This is a moment.
The numbers don't lie.
All right, now you're just pulling. Now you're just pulling random ones. But I mean, what did you think of Raw? I really
It
thought
was
that-
good. It was good. Like I really love the Cody Brock segment. Those two guys, man, they do a great job together. And I don't know why. Whenever Cody joined, I really wasn't thinking like, oh, we need that Cody Brock match, you know.
Right.
But man, it's been a great program, and it's been great for Cody, you know. And that's what you need you need something really good for Cody. So I think I like him, attacking or getting attacked with Michelle out there, my sweet mama out there, Michelle, funky like a monkey. Yeah, so his mom obviously was out there, and unfortunately we didn't get a Dustin appearance.
Oh, that would have been great.
Would have been great. But that's not gonna happen. But yeah,
Cody's mom. That was she was really hamming it up too with those boo,
Cody's mom has got
Oh,
it
God.
going on.
And what they don't tell you is that it was a stunt, Granny.
Yeah, so
wrestling's biggest secrets finally revealed. Love that movie.
that is great. I remember watching it as a kid. Like when I see those promos of those, I'm like, "What? They're gonna tell us secrets of wrestling? What secrets are there?" And I like that's when I like really was like, I was like, oh, they're gonna show how they really punch. And
That kid in the front row, he's actually the heel's son.
Yeah. All the stuff with the referee like blew me away. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
The referee he talks to them.
Talks to
him. Hearing the phrase "going home," we're gonna go home. Like what? Anyways, yeah, I might end up watching it tonight on YouTube. Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, I thought it was great. A great way to hype it up. I almost be interesting where they put this in the card, because it's close to me for putting the main event, being on the main event with Roman and Jay. It's almost on that level. Roman and Jay are still main eventing. I know that, but I mean, where do you put this on the card? I mean, do you do this to open the night? I mean, putting it in the middle feels weird. No, Brock and Cody.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I think you have to do it in the middle.
It feels weird to me, though.
It does, but I mean, they've done it in the past. Like here, the thing with it going in the middle of the card and it works is because it's a stipulation attached to it. So it's like you can't put I feel like you can't put a stipulation match at the beginning of the show. And this isn't worthy of the main event as much as a great feud as it is. I just can't argue putting it over a title match. I feel like putting it in the middle of the card, it gives it some importance to an extent. Like it's, right in the middle of the card. It's a stipulation match. It's changing the pace a little bit of the rest of the show. That's kind of my take on it. But I could see it either opening or being just like dead in the middle.
I have to say too, and I've been just really impressed with Brock too over the last probably since that Royal Rumble appearance 2020, the one in Houston. I've grown like so much more appreciation for him. Maybe even before that, actually, that match he had with Daniel Bryan, I thought was really, really good. That's when I really kind of started appreciating Brock. Always just like, especially for me, I saw Brock beat Taker in the Superdome. So I was like, I always had a bad taste in my mouth, but I've done a 180 on that.
Yeah.
And I've kind of done a 180 on Brock. Like, man, he's so good. Like the way he moves in the ring and the way he sells, it's so good. So I like how he's bringing back the Kimura lock, just this unhinged crunchy Brock. That's what I need. More of that.
I agree. So, trying to think what else happened on Raw that we can talk about. Anything stand out to you?
Well, we got new women's tag team champions.
There you go.
Again, but I do think this one will stick.
I do too.
I think they were kind of trying to find their way with this, And obviously, you guys know I'm a huge Major Pod fan,
Mm-hmm.
fan of Cardona and Myers, and I'm really thrilled for Chelsea because, man, she had just such an up and down career, meaning like get accepted to go into Tough Enough as the replacement. She stood out, I feel like, in Tough Enough as well too. Did very good, and then has to go work the Indies. Gets the. I thought she had a great gimmick and Impact with the Hot Mess. Gets signed to WWE, goes through NXT, breaks her wrists, gets the wrist fixed, gets called up, breaks the wrist again, gets fired, kills it on the Indies, back to the WWE. It's been a very up and down for her in that regard. So I'm thrilled for her. And also, I didn't even realize this, but this is also Sonya Deville's first title as well too.
Yeah,
I didn't even think of that's true because this maybe that another reason why you need not now but down the road a mid card title, or maybe eventually if they decide to get rid of women's tag titles, do the mid card title. I don't know, but this is a team that they can really build the division around, and they've done a really good job. Going to this, and I think they can hopefully lift the division. They need some help though. You got to give them some dance partners, and it can't just be Liv and Raquel. No. Let's see, Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter. I know that's not their name. I forgot what their names are right now, but let's see them two kind of get into it. You got Elbow Fire and
Isla Dawn,
Isla Dawn, so but let's give them some team names. Let's do something with them.
And I think also you mentioned Tough Enough. I think what's really fascinating about this team is that these two were from the same Tough Enough season. I mean, isn't that pretty cool?
Yeah, it's always interesting with this Tough Enoughs because the winners hardly ever go on to do anything. The only winner I can remember that actually, Maven, of course, but the only really winner that stands out is John Morrison.
Yeah.
He won Tough Enough, but he's the only one that really did anything.
Right.
He did win. It was him and Matt Capicelli, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Like, it's always the people that get eliminated quickly.
Yeah, I know. Something else that stood out this week, I mentioned him earlier on, Shinsuke. There were rumors that he would be getting an edgier side to his character, and he lost by disqualification to Bronson Reed after Ciampa got in and interfered. And then Shinsuke was just having none of Tommaso. He just, shrugs him off, does whatever, and he yells at Byron backstage. Where do you see this going with Shinsuke? Are they turning him heel, or is this just going to be a more serious Shinsuke? What do you make of this?
I don't want to see him heel. I want to just see. I do want to see when he came into NXT, Shinsuke, he was such a badass,
right?
When he first came in NXT, and of course I had never really. I don't really follow the Japan scene, so whenever I saw him, I was like, okay, I like this guy. And I was real behind. I want to see that Shinsuke. That's what I want to see. This complete badass. So if he stays edgier but is a badass and a babyface, I'm good for it.
Mm-hmm.
No, WWE. This is maybe talking about, but WWE they don't know how to have an Asian heel. That makes sense. They turn him very stereotypical, and I wish they would kind of stop that.
Yeah, I mean that's a problem that's just been in wrestling for
God
knows how long. I mean, little preview of the debate, but I was talking about how inclusive wrestling is, especially in 2023 on the independent scene. You see wrestlers of all different types of all different types of wrestlers nowadays. But there are still a lot of issues in wrestling that need to be addressed if you want to make those leaps forward. And I think this is definitely a problem with that, is the whole, not to get on a whole tangent with this, but I think that is definitely an issue. And I'm kind of hoping that they're able to kind of right the wrongs. Like they did it with Shinsuke when they turned him heel. They made him, a bit of a I remember the feud. That's what I'm thinking of. The feud with Jinder. You know, when he's he's saying
the Maharaja,
right? But when he was feuding with Shinsuke, and he put his face on the screen, and he's making fun of that is like ridiculous,
right?
So I'm kind of hoping, and there's been a lot of progress, obviously, since that time period, or just that essence in general. I mean, just keep at it, keep going on that right path. And I think if you can get Shinsuke to be a serious contender, I think that rights a lot of wrongs that they've done with him on the main roster. Because for the most part, his run on the main roster has been very, very underwhelming.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, if you keep going with that, I mean, he could be a threat to the world title picture,
Sure.
But I do think they need to build it from the ground up, and he just take out people, whether it's like by disqualification or not, just becomes completely brutal. And he's just taking people left, right. Maybe even do like a couple people here and there, maybe some false injuries, some worked injuries, something like along those lines. Like, guy, like, oh man, he took out this guy. He's gonna be out for a month or whatever. I don't know. It might be kind of interesting to do something like that, just to give that mystique back. That's what I mean. Mystique of Shinsuke Nakamura. Like that match with Sami Zayn was incredible. And of course it takes two. I mean, Sami did an amazing job too, but that was like, I bought in Shinsuke, and that was my first match I ever saw with him. And then ever since then, it was like, so I they need to right the wrongs. Absolutely. So
this is my my nitpick of the night. I hope this new change in Shinsuke leads to him going back to his original pose when he gets in the ring, when he holds onto the rope and he does his pose. Because I don't know what's been going. This guy's getting lazy on me. He goes up to the rope and he just drops right to his knees. Like, come on.
Come on.
Give me that old Shinsuke pose. And then I'll be like, all right, we've got King of Strong Style back.
Oh yeah.
That's what they should be calling. I don't know if they can call him. I don't know if there's a trademark with New Japan or whatever, but call him the fucking King of Strong Style again.
Well, they were calling him that, I feel like, in NXT, right?
I think they were calling him that in NXT, and then they started calling him the artist known as Shinsuke and on the main roster. So there you go. Fucking like refer to that. That's how you can make him interesting again. Like Shinsuke is not. He's one of my favorite wrestlers. Shinsuke. Fell in love with him when I saw his match with Kota Ibushi. What a name that is this week. At Wrestle Kingdom. I believe in 2015.
Yeah.
And then his match with Styles, Wrestle Kingdom 2016, and loved him ever since. He's just not interesting right now because they haven't given him anything. Do what you have been doing with, Finn Balor had a great hype video not too long ago, kind of painting his story in the build up to Money in the Bank. Do something with him that you paint like what the history of strong style is, and how he's the king of strong style. And this is how he's going to implement this going forward. Like, give me something to work with. You have something right there. Like, he's built that up as his career. The king of strong style. Give it to me.
Right.
Give it to me. Give me what I want.
Come
on. That was really it for Raw. I think we hit on pretty much everything. Like I said, the main event was great, but not much to talk about there. Before we wrap up the show, probably wrap it up early, we do need to bring back a segment that we haven't really done in a while because there's some big news on another show from WWE.
Down south slanging, rolling with these hustlers, trying to get rid of all you haters and you busters. Down south slanging, rolling with these hustlers, trying to get rid of all you haters and busters.
We're back to the black and gold, but that intro will never, ever leave the Raw down. Dominic Mysterio defeats Wes Lee for the North American Championship this past Tuesday in a shocking championship win for Dom, or Dirty Dom as they're calling him. Judgment Day's racking up the gold. Rhea's got the Women's World title. Damien's got the Money in the Bank. Finn might be on his way to win the World Heavyweight title, and now we've got Dominic Mysterio with the North American Championship. What were your immediate thoughts on Dom winning this championship, and what does this mean going forward for Judgment Day or just NXT in general?
Well, quick plug for coming down the aisle, which will actually probably drop either tomorrow night or Saturday, just for everybody. But I was actually my guest this week is Austin. Where we were watching the match and I was scrolling through. I'm like, oh wow, Dom just won the North American title, so you can hear my actual reaction. I thought it was cool. I think it's cool. I think this is a perfect fit for Dom, and because let's face it, like he still needs to like, even though he's got a lot of heat, but part of the heat is like people feel like he's in kayfabe. I think. Not worthy to be there.
Yes.
Now you give them an opportunity, kind of like we were saying, like he should have beaten Cody a couple weeks ago. This gives them an opportunity to brag, like, "Oh, I'm the best in North America," or whatever. So it gives an opportunity to brag. You can hold a title. You can see what he looks like holding a title. See what he does. See what kind of matches, and then at the same time you can help build viewers to NXT, because while he's having the title on Raw, that's a great way to say, oh yeah, and this is the NXT North American Champion, which you could find tomorrow night on USA right here on this channel.
I thought they were going to do that with the Bloodline when Solo Sikoa won.
Yeah.
And then they kind of just took it off him. I'm hoping that's not what they do with Dom. I hope he rides off this momentum with a championship. It makes sense to give him this title. Like, not to shit on the North American Championship, because Wes Lee has done a lot to build up the prestige of that title, but it's not the Intercontinental title. It's not the United States Championship. It's a championship that you can give Dom and it works. Especially with the current landscape of the titles right now. Like, you're not taking it off of Gunther. Doesn't make sense to take it off of Theory. So you might as well give him the North American Championship, give him a singles title so we can run with it, garner up some momentum off of that.
I think this would have been great for him to have, like when they just had their European tour or whatever. Like he roam around like, oh, you guys want me to see defend this title? Well, I can't, because I'm in dirty Europe. Gross. Can't do it here. I'm the champion of North America, not the European champion. Just the booze that would have rained down on him. But anyway, but I think he could do a lot for the title, do a lot to elevate NXT. So
Tyson asked, do you see the Judgment Day holding all the titles a la Horseman Evolution? And I want to ask this same question. Do you think that Dominic winning this title is foreshadowing potentially Finn winning the World Heavyweight Championship so that everyone has something?
I think this is foreshadowing Finn's exit. Actually, I think it's the complete opposite.
Oh, okay.
Where Finn is the only one not to have something, and they all kind of look at him like, with the guy with the stick. Hey, do something. Everybody's like looking at him like, bro, like we're all doing things here. What are you doing? Like, you don't belong in here. Bye. You know. And then that might be an opportunity to bring in a JD McDonough or maybe somebody else. I don't know. I do see, them keeping Judgment Day as a faction, but getting rid of Finn. That makes any sense. So.
Yeah. I'm calling it right now. I'm booking the Fed.
Look at the Fed, brother.
That should be that should be a shirt. I'm booking the Fed.
That is a good one, actually.
Seth versus Finn happens at SummerSlam. Seth wins. Maybe they do something with the cash in. Maybe like Damian doesn't win the title at SummerSlam. He doesn't cash in. He still has his money in the bank. We go to the Raw after SummerSlam, and maybe it's a little bit too soon, but I think the perfect way to do this is by having the Judgment Day in the ring. And, they're talking about how they were so successful at SummerSlam, Rhea beat Rhea beat Raquel, and maybe Dominic got a win or someone did something. And
Dominic got booed out the building.
Yeah, something. And then Damian cuts the promo, and it's important that he does this. And he says, and now all we have to do is just cut the last piece of the we just have to cut the last dead weight off of this group. And he turns to Finn, which is you. And Damian, Dominic, and Rhea all just beat up Finn Balor in the same way that they kicked out Edge originally from the original Judgment Day. Because if you remember, when they brought in Finn, Finn was like, I've seen the way of the Judgment Day. I want to join this, that, and the other thing. And, Damian gets the mic and he's like, we're stronger than ever. We just have to cut the last piece of dead weight. And he turns to Edge, which is you. And then they all beat him up. And that's how we get the current iteration of the Judgment Day. I think if they were to do this and they be the ones to kick Finn out of the group, it kind of just ties into what we were talking about of Finn being like that, poking him with the stick, like do something. Well, Judgment Day does it for him. Fuck off. Kick him out of the group in the same fashion as when the group started a year ago.
Another cool thing too that you could do is you could put the title on Finn, and maybe Priest, Dominic, and Rhea already made up their mind. Like, no matter what happens with this match, Finn's out. But we're going to make him think he's good until the match.
Mm-hmm.
He wins the match, wins the title. They all come down to celebrate. And Priest lays him out. They put the boots to him. You could even have Rhea doing like the riptide or something like that to Finn. And then Priest cashes in right there and wins the world title. Something along those lines. That could be fun. So, and then that's how they say you're out. You could even do it the next night on Raw. So, and which would be a callback to whenever he won the Universal title at SummerSlam. Only had 24-hour championship, man, which was against Seth Rollins.
Right.
So
that's something you can do too. But all in all, I think Dom winning this title sets up a lot of good things for him, for the Judgment Day, and for NXT going forward. It makes NXT more must-see.
I might actually watch next week.
Hey, look at you. Maybe you'll give the NXT report next week. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We know you're not going. Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Wrestling's cool.
Wrestling is great.
It's a great sport.
If you're not into wrestling right now, you're
I like wrestling.
If you're not into wrestling,
Get a life, kid.
I have to say.
That's literally what my dad says when I start talking about wrestling. Get a life, kid. I'm 37. Exactly.
All right.
Hey, yo.
Yo, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the RAWDOWN. J-Bone, what do you have going on?
Coming down the aisle, we got, of course, you can head over coming down the pod.com, and probably will be delayed by a day or so. I want to try to catch all of the wrestling figure news because there might be some more stuff that's dropped, not from Mattel, just in general, tomorrow. So I want to make sure I catch it all. So I'll probably be delayed by a day or two. Tune in then. But also Monday, Miles and I will be doing our list. Top 10 tag team matches of all time. So you definitely don't want to miss out on that. And I know we'll go ahead and plug for Marco since he skipped out for us, but Chick Foley show, go to chickfoleyshows.com, and they just dropped a Pod Warriors episode where they actually talk about the preview night. So it was figure stuff from last night. And then they're going to be dropping a full scope of figure talk on Monday. So Pod Warriors will be back on Monday.
All right.
So check that out.
Very nice. Very nice. And of course, you can check out everything that the Turnbuckle Tavern has going on by heading on over to, you guessed it, the TurnbuckleTavern.com. Listen to all of our podcasts, watch all of our video podcasts, join our Discord, follow us on social media. You can also invest in the Turnbuckle Tavern. ProWrestlingTees.com/tavern. Not these other places where you find our logos on the shirts. You won't even get the shirt mailed to you.
You won't.
You will if you go to ProWrestlingTees.com/tavern. Everyone has a shirt. We're going to bug Chad to get us another RAWDOWN shirt because I think it's time.
It's time.
It's time. Enough is enough and it's time for a change. So, but still so many great designs nonetheless. And if these don't tickle your fancy, then go over to Teespring. TheTurnbuckleTavern.com. There's a link where you can go to Teespring and get even more stickers and mugs and t-shirts and everything else that your heart desires. So do it. Support in any way possible. It goes a long, long way.
Long way.
Long way. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of our wacky show. This was episode number 90. There are 10 more episodes until we hit number 100.
Oh, baby.
So stick around for that. But until then, as always,
Life sucks, and then you die.